Sorry to interrupt you there, David. I just went live right in the middle of your water skiing story. So, but you were successful, correct? With your water skiing? Oh, you
Nope.
were okay. You were not successful. Okay. Thanks everybody for being here. Ray Dickey from South Carolina CAI, Hudson Valley CAI, and Association Help Now. Bunch of different states. I'm not going to bother going through them. It's pretty amazing, like how many people tune in from like all over the place. Today we are going to talk about recognizing threats in financial crimes, and we have a great guest keynote kind of speaker panelist who is going to be introduced here in a second. Before we do that, though, let me launch a poll. If you are here for CEUs, and the polls take a while nowadays, click yes, click what you need. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of different stuff on there. If you need CIMICB, one's for Florida, one's for Illinois, maybe you need this, maybe you need that. If for some reason it's not a combination that you need, just use your question feature. Everyone has a question feature. Please use it. That's how you communicate with us today. I love hearing from the audience. Also, if I close the poll before you had time to fill it out, just use that question feature and say, hey, Ray, I need CEUs. I don't use anyone's names, so feel free to ask whatever you would like to ask. And I think I'm going to close this poll right now. I close it pretty quick. I don't use people's names, so feel free to ask whatever you would like. Bit of a disclaimer. What is it, Dawn? You've been here enough times. You should know my disclaimer by now.
If you weren't able to click on the chat, please send Ray a message and he will make sure that you get your credits.
My disclaimer, close, thank you. My disclaimer is don't send me anything too top secret because you never know I could make a mistake. So, but I haven't made a mistake yet. So feel free to ask whatever you would like to do. And people are already contacting me. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. If you're here from Florida, pay attention. You're going to have to do a special little step. Not a big deal. You have to do a survey. With that being said, let's introduce our panel with who I see first, and that is Dave Rosser.
Morning, everybody.
Dave, who are you? Who do you work for? And we're going to do your background in a second. Do just a brief on your background.
Sure. I was a Secret Service agent for 25 years, retired, excuse me, in 2001, and I've worked for Sun State Security for the past 4 years, supporting contract security services.
And Dave's got some great tips for managers, and board members. Not only physical safety, but financial tips. So obviously someone with Dave's background, also with the FBI task force, he's going to give you some information you're not going to get anywhere else today. I'm waiting for Dave to ask me if I'm available to go on a secret mission with him because I'm needed for the government. It hasn't happened yet, but Dave, I am available under certain circumstances. Just remember that, okay?
That's good.
So if I'm not around audience for like a month, hey, you don't have to call me a hero, but you can.
You don't mind going to Italy, do you?
Where?
Italy.
I would love that. We could visit John. Okay. John Legumina, please introduce yourself.
John Legumina from the Legumina Law Firm in Westchester, New York. We represent condominiums, co-ops, homeowner associations throughout the Hudson Valley area and New York City.
Adam, please.
Adam Clarkson from Clarkson, McAlonis, and O'Connor in Charleston, South Carolina. We represent all types of community associations throughout the state for general counsel, collections, and instruction defect. I'm a fellow of your College Community Association lawyers. You were vice chair of the Legislative Action Committee for South Carolina, and I'm on the Blue Ribbon Committee.
Deb.
Good morning, everyone. Deborah Girelli. I'm the Vice President of Girelli Insurance Agency here in Cold Spring, New York. We are an independent full-service agency specializing in community association insurance for co-ops, condos, and HOAs in the tri-state area. I am a CERMS by CAI Nationals, and I'm also on the local Hudson Valley chapter board.
Dawn.
Hi, everybody. My name's Dawn Becker-Durnan, and like Deb, I'm also a CERMS. And Acrisure specializes in insurance for all types of businesses, but in my practice division, we specialize in community association insurance. I also serve on the board of directors for South Carolina CAI.
Dave Byrne.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Byrne. I am the chairperson of my law firm's community association practice, and we represent condominiums, HOAs, cooperatives in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
All right. Kevin.
Kevin Herzl, managing member of Herzl Law, over 17 attorney firm, represent over 1,000 community associations between Michigan and Illinois. Also happen to be on the CCAL board of directors, a member of CCAL. I'm an aspiring secret agent. I'll be in Italy in a couple of weeks, so we can meet up there. Dave and Ray, I'm looking forward to it.
That'd be so cool, you know? All right, Tom. We can't hear you, Tom. You're muted.
Tom England, Vice President, First Citizens Bank. We do lockbox services throughout the country. I'm on many boards, credentials. I was a secret agent when I was a young kid too, so I'm looking forward to the event.
Let's not go crazy with the secret agent stuff, okay? And also the audience is sending me stuff. Yes, audience, I know I'm too old to be a Secret Service agent. And they didn't even say Kevin. They said, Ray, you realize you're too old. Yes, I know. I know that. No one wants me, not even the Army. Corey.
Morning, everyone. My name is Corey Kravitz. I'm the managing partner of Kovich Schifrin Nesbitt's Florida office. We represent associations all throughout the state. Thanks for having me.
Man, a lot of people want to be secret agents. Okay, let's see. The schedule today, just so everybody knows, is I figure we'll be with just Dave Rosler till about 10:45. Then we're going to do a break for 5 minutes. The panel is going to come back. Then the panel is going to come back on commentary related on security and manager physical safety. I'm going to let the panelists come up with whatever they want to come up with. And I always said it's hard. It's always hard on the last attorney because the first attorney always gets to take the easy ones. And then we'll wrap up. And then Adam and I are going to do a little bit of an overtime segment. The other attorneys can stay if they want, but there's some filming we need to do. And if you want to hang out and watch us do that, you can, but you don't need to. That being said, I am going to have everyone drop off, but I may call you guys back except for Dave. And what I want to do, Dave, is set the tone here a little bit with your background, and then you'll fill it in with the audience. You are a special Secret Service special agent.
Correct.
You are on the FBI task force, and
Yep.
you also specialized in financial crimes and protection. And people are going to ask, and you were also on protection details.
That's correct.
And we could probably sit here and list all the other things that are involved with your background, but we'd be here probably for another 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, probably so. Probably so. A lot of people don't realize what the Secret Service has jurisdiction over financial crimes. Originally founded to do financial crimes, and it wasn't until a number of years later, as part of the Treasury, we started doing protective missions, and that's what most people know us for.
But you are actually a great source for us today. And we're gonna break this into physical threats, because you're obviously trained to pick up on certain signs, which is important in our industry. People are very hostile towards our board members and managers. And then we're going to talk about financial crimes also. So what I wanted to do is common financial crimes and tactics used against associations. I thought we would start there, Dave. And I don't know how you want to get started because there's so many scams out there. It's unbelievable. So our audience is probably smart enough to figure out the really easy ones. It's the more tricky ones that they may not know about. But please, they run associations, a lot of people, a lot of communications.
Yep, absolutely. You know, a lot of these places have common mailboxes. People can find ways into the mailboxes to find credit card bills, bank statements, that sort of thing. And you only need a little bit of information to start perpetrating financial crimes, opening accounts in other people's names, that sort of thing. So, you know, having good security in and around your facility so that people aren't accessing the mailboxes would be important. Mass mailings, it's easy to hire some company here, send this out, and it may be a bunch of BS. You open some flyer. Hey, look, for $50, I've got a 2-week all expense paid cruise. Let me just go on here and send them $50. If it sounds too good to be true, it's way too good to be true. Okay,
so Dave, let's remember though, I want to concentrate on the association end of it, because I know you do this for a living, and we're lucky to have you. You talk all around the country about personal, crimes against people. But for the most part, our audience is going to be concentrating on crimes against the association through them. So I think a lot of these are going to be probably related to computer related crimes, I'm assuming. And a lot of our managers, their information is public. It's out there. Can you talk a little bit about how much information is out there? Because I know that people do not really believe how much you could find out about someone online if you're a manager or a board member.
So I happen to have a rental property, and you can find the contact information for all the board members. I'm a board member on something that's not property related, but a lot of your information can show up there. People start using that to create fake emails, fake correspondence. You know, they could go on to the board webpage. Here's 5 or 6 board members. Now you got a lot of them will have a picture of the board member, and now they may have an email address or phone number, and they can start to put together an email that looks like it's coming from board member Ray Dickey at ABC Condominiums. And if you don't look carefully, it's going to look real. It could sound real. Lot of things that you need to really look at. Spelling, grammar, the type of speech. Many of these crimes originate from people that are overseas where English is not their first language. Some common misspellings like here, H-E-R-E, or H-E-A-R. And you're like, a board member shouldn't spell that wrong. That's really, really odd. Things like that. You got to look really carefully at the email address it's coming from, because they'll spoof somebody's email address, maybe change a letter, and then instead of at, you know, HOA.gov or HOA.com, it's, you know, gmail.com, and it's R Dickey, but they spell your last name slightly wrong, something like that, or Ray Dickey 1 2 3 4 5 6. That's a clue. You need to look at these things carefully.
So let's talk about the manager a little bit. I want them to understand how easy it is in some cases for me to impersonate a resident and try to get information or get that resident's information from the association, which would be one of the worst case scenarios for the association. Basically, people's addresses are out there. It's easily accessible. The names of your relatives is out there. I don't think people actually believe this. The birth dates are out there. I think they've kind of tossed that back a little bit in some of the public areas. Where your relatives lived, where you used to live. Dave, you can basically make up a pretty good story based on what you could find online. It's very easy to be tricked.
Absolutely. I mean, all you got to do is you got to go to LinkedIn, then maybe you stop by Facebook and maybe some of these other social media sites, and you can put together a realistic profile. You're going to get yourself a nice headshot if you need a professional looking something to imitate myself or you or any of these board members. And then they just turn that into a wave of information like, oh, this really sounds like Dave Rosser, and I'm hitting up some board member about information or trying to get information about other people or financial information. It's really scary how easy it is out there. I mean, people are posting, hey, on this day, Jane Doe was born. Well, all of a sudden you got her address. You can go to the, sadly, go to the obituaries. Here's your kid, here's your kids, here's your grandkids. Now, grandma who just lost somebody is getting an email that a grandkid, and these people know the grandkid's name, need money, need something right away. It's really sad how much information is out there and how they use it. Some of these people use it.
Now, Dave's position here is a lot different than my position here. So Dave knows 1,000 other ways that people can get people's information, but he's probably not going to say it because he's got a fine line that he needs to toe. I don't. There's I'm not going to say which. There's companies that you could pay to find out all this information if you want to. And you just pay them a set fee, and you could look someone up, and you could literally find out everything I just said, your relatives, where you used to live, everything. And if you want to pay more money, you can get even more information on them. It's completely outrageous what you could find. And then if you combine it with Facebook and LinkedIn, you don't have to be a brain scientist to absolutely impersonate someone, especially if you don't know that person. They're going to have a history. and they just guess, right? They just got to be right once. So maybe
Absolutely.
they miss the boat on 9 managers, but they get lucky on that 10th
Absolutely.
one, and
Absolutely.
then we have a problem, right?
Absolutely. And they can, they'll go into this information and somehow or another figure out, hey, Jane Doe works for, one of these board members. And suddenly they get an email about writing in a check and it's urgent and got to be done in the next 5 minutes, these sorts of things. It's really scary what people can pull off. And you're right, these companies that you can pay to get information, a lot of the bad guys, they'll make up a fake company name, abc.com, and they might be willing to pay $100 or $200 a month to start getting all this information because they know the return might be thousands of dollars. And maybe they get 1 in 10, 1 in 20 managers, but that one they may get 15, 20, $50,000 out of them before they realize, oh crap, this is a scam.
Yeah, especially with the invoicing scams, right? Where they're basically get the ball rolling with the invoicing scams, and they can easily impersonate a company also. So if you're a very busy manager, I don't know how many managers would actually, well, I guess they would fall for that. I bet it happens all the time. And managers are in charge of a lot of finances, but they still have to get through the board members too in some cases. And I know our panel of insurance and attorneys will jump on that for me to talk a little bit about that. So you mentioned a couple of things, Dave, about the obvious things, right? Like misspellings, things like that. I think our managers are going to pick up on that, right?
Yep.
They're good at dealing with people. But I want to just convey the fact that there's a good chance you're going to get tricked no matter how smart you are, because they're just going to catch on the right day at the right time.
Absolutely.
Maybe somebody's been yelling at you at the window and you click the wrong button. And can you run with that, Dave? I bet anybody could be tricked. Even you could be, theoretically.
Absolutely. I mean, even, many companies, to include my own, they'll send out test phishing scams. And if you, click delete or click on report this to IT, you get like a, hey, congratulations, you didn't fall for it. If you click on the link or open it, it takes you right to, you shouldn't have opened this. You've now been enrolled in all this extra online training, which is great. But go back to something you said a few minutes ago. I start sending low-level invoice for $75. Somebody's might just forward that, process this. Hey, accounting, take care of this, and then slowly ramp it up. They're not going to start with, hey, you owe us $100,000. That's really obvious. Hey, here's some $89.23 we owe for the landscaping company, but they've spoofed your landscaping company and it's not really them. And you might do this repetitively month after month in a small dollar amount. I'd be more concerned about some of those. That board members are going to catch the big ones. They should catch the big ones. I'm sure there's levels in place, but some of these really good ones, they'll nickel and dime you to death and get thousands of dollars. And are you going to report something for $83? No, maybe they did 10 or 15 times.
Well, let's just really briefly talk about this too, Dave, because I don't think people understand. So people think somehow too they're gonna find this person on their own, and a lot of times they can. Let's say it's even somebody in the country. Let's say they know who did this, right? They think they're gonna call the FBI or they're gonna call the police or they're gonna call the Secret Service. They're gonna be like, wow, we're gonna run right out and get this person. You know what? They don't care. Unless it's a lot of money, no one's gonna help you. Your money's gone. They don't even care if the guy's right in your office. But go ahead.
Yep, that money is definitely gone. And what typically happens with federal cases, so Secret Service, FBI, IRS, that sort of thing, all our cases would be prosecuted through the U.S. Attorney's Office. They have financial benchmarks of, hey, if the loss isn't at least $50, $75, $100,000, they can't take the case because they've got so many big cases. State and local police departments and investigative agencies like FDLE, they're also going to have thresholds of money. Now theirs may be $5,000 or $10,000, but it's $150. There's way too much crime going on to try to chase down somebody that stole $150. It stinks, it sucks, You need to let your credit card company or bank know, whoever it is, but you've got to get to certain financial thresholds and be pretty certain of who it was before somebody's going to agree to prosecute this person for a few $100s, even a few $1,000s.
I've heard instances of $10,000. I've heard people have written bad checks and no one's helped them get the money. They know who the person is. So you're basically just, it's a crime, and people think, oh, the police are going to help me. But in reality, there's a very good chance that's not going to happen. Is that an outrageous statement, Dave, or do you?
No, not at
agree with
all.
it?
That's accurate. In the police agencies, I worked hand in hand with many police agencies throughout my career, and it's not uncommon to have cases that don't reach that $100,000 level to go federal. So I'll partner up with a local detective at a local sheriff's office or police agency, and we can take a $15,000 loss to them for prosecution. But you're right, if it's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, there's so many more that are 15, 20, 25,000 that those small ones probably not getting prosecuted, or having somebody waste a lot of time trying to investigate when they got bigger fish to fry.
Now, when we spoke before, the reason I know some of this stuff, audience, is because I spoke to Dave before. So I didn't know any of this before I spoke to Dave. But the lesson to be learned with these financial crimes, Dave, is there's really not too much you could do about it, except I think if you feel like something's up and it's suspicious, pick up the phone and maybe call somebody. Because if you keep and immediately stop being on the computer. Immediately. Can you talk a little bit about that? How people should just stop immediately and call a phone number that also, can you talk about how they should call a phone number that they know is a real phone number? Can you do it briefly so we can go on to the physical? Yeah.
I know some real life examples where somebody at a corporation, medium-sized corporation, mid-level person gets an email from the owner, CEO. Hey, I need you to go out and get $100 gift card, Visa gift cards ASAP, and email me the numbers on the front and back. I'm too busy. Don't come talk to me. And person did it, came back, sent them. And soon after sending, was like, walked down the hall, tapped on the door because the email said, don't come bother me, I'm really busy. Hey, did you, whoops, and then thousands of dollars out the window. And it was a spoofed email that looked similar, but not exact.
Our managers won't run into that scenario, but they'll run into the scenario where maybe they're communicating with someone they think is a resident. And as soon as they're not certain, as soon as they have a funny feeling, would you recommend they just stop immediately? Pick up the phone, 100%, call somebody who knows somebody. Don't continue. And don't think that you're going to figure this out online with this person, because the other person on the line is very good at this. And at that point, you're done.
You're going to hear deceptive language, things that don't make sense. The people on the other end of the phone may be repetitive and either give a lack of detail or way too much detail. As soon as that little thing goes off in your head, says, something doesn't seem right here, hang up and use a known contact method on file to call them, whether it's a phone number or email, whichever one it happens to be. As soon as your spidey senses go off, that's hey, something just came up, I got to go. Hang up, stop the emails, go look up in whatever you have on file for that person for contact information. Reach out for them that way to see if it's real or not.
And audience, I think the key word was known, right? Known email, known phone number. And for a lot of you in the audience, you're probably like, I know all this already. Well, you want to know something? I feel passionate about this because I get the phone calls from board members, especially some that are, they're elderly, and they're getting ripped off. And I'm telling you that they do, because they're just not used to the technology. If you never grew up like this with this technology, how would you even understand? It's not even their fault. Okay, Dave, most of the comments I'm getting, I'm surprised. Nobody seems to care about finances. They all care about their personal safety. I am getting like 1,000 stories here of managers and board members who have been threatened by people. There's people that they know have guns that have threatened them. It's absolutely very sad what I'm seeing here. So before we went live, there's 1,000 obvious tips that someone will see that someone's going to possibly assault them, right? Hey, if
Sure.
I'm going to beat the hell out of you. Well, we know that. That's a good tip. I would like you to talk about some of the more subtle actions that somebody could take. And it maybe if you agree that maybe you could, like, the repetitive motions is a good one, maybe that kind of thing.
Sure.
Can you start?
Absolutely. You know, obviously the anger, you can see it in their face. You can tell by the tone of their voice if somebody's getting angry. The clenched fists, you know, you start getting the clenched fists, means somebody might want to reach out and touch you and bust your nose up pretty good. Starting to take steps forward to you, those sorts of things. They start fidgeting or drop their backpack and suddenly start reaching in for it. Those are the physical actions that would start making me nervous and make me want to start taking a step back. As soon as you start realizing even one of these behaviors, that's when you want to take a step back, end the conversation, or get yourself out of the room, out of that area to other people that might be able to help diffuse the situation.
And managers and board members, think about what we're saying. Like, it doesn't mean everybody that has a repetitive motion is going to attack you. But Dave and I were talking about before we went live, a lot of people use repetitive motions because they have a lot of built up feelings or emotions. And as soon as that's why they do the repetitive motions, but that can easily turn to anger. So if you're in a confrontational situation with someone, they have repetitive motions, you may want to pay attention to that. And it doesn't mean they may have a medical problem. So don't assume by all means, but you have a right to be concerned about it, right, Dave? If you're in a confrontational situation and they start having a repetitive motion, that is a possible sign of that they're having an issue they may not be able to control. Agreed?
Absolutely. And, there are people that have mild to moderate mental illness that you may not pick up on it at first. And that's definitely a sign of, let's end the conversation and get to somewhere safe and maybe continue it some other time by phone or by email, known sources, of course. But yeah, that repetitive, scratching at your ear or scratching your nose or something like that might be tugging on your suspenders or something like that. All these are things that you add them all up together and take action, which should be end the conversation, get out of the room, and come back another day.
And you're going to notice these repetitive motions, right, Dave? We're not, I mean, these aren't like hidden clues. These are pretty obvious. But
Absolutely.
a lot of people ignore them. They have no clue what they're about. The other one that was about even people that are just like intensely staring. I guess, it's obvious when somebody's yelling and screaming at you, right, Dave? But sometimes if people get super quiet all of a sudden and you sense this level of intenseness.
Absolutely. It's that death stare where they're almost looking, like you said, right through you and not reacting to anything that you're saying, whether it's a nod yes, a no, or you might ask them a really easy question that's a yes, no, or a short answer. And they're looking through you like, hey, I'm going to do something to you. Again, another clue. Add these all up together.
And, Dave, the odd of our board members or managers being physically attacked are low. So don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to terrify people. One thing I did want to have you, if you agree, back me up on. I don't think people understand how dangerous people are. I think a lot of board members in particular find themselves in bravado at a board meeting, right? Somebody starts yelling at them. They start yelling back and they think they're going to have this back and forth case of bravado, right? It's usually men. Women are usually a lot smarter when it comes to these things. You know what? You don't know who you're messing with. There's people out there, they just don't want to have like a quick fight and best man wins. They want to kill you. Dave, can you back me up on that?
Everybody's seen these, YouTube videos where at board meeting, city council, whatever, somebody gets up there, they're having their piece, and then a board member and the person standing in front of them, they're both getting heated. You need to realize, you know what? I don't need to egg this person on because you don't know what they're capable of. 9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100, it's going to be a lot of bravado, like you said, back and forth. You this, the association that. You guys need to do this. You got to let it go sometimes, and you know, you start sensing some anger, and you're starting to get the finger in the chest, or I know they may not be that close, but somebody comes out from behind the microphone, the little podium where everybody speaks, and takes a step forward, and the fingers going. That's hey, you know what? Let's end this. Let's move on to the next person. Next thing, hey, let's take a break. That sort of thing. You know, People lose their minds out of silly stuff because the garbage wasn't picked up, or maybe they didn't cut the
Right.
grass the way you like it.
I think I don't think people understand, and I just wish the audience will just leave with that too. Just be careful who you're messing with, because you're not going to find yourself like back in high school when you're having a fist fight. Like I said, I'm using men as an example. This can happen with women also. You may be fighting for your life. I know it sounds absurd. You may get an eye gouged out. For what? For an HOA board meeting? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. You can always backtrack and have another plan of attack. All right, Dave, why don't you kind of wrap us up here a little bit? I'm going to have the rest of our panel kind of jump on at this point also. Remember, we're dealing with managers and board members here. They're public figures. Their information is out there. People know where they live, especially the board members. They're going to know how old they are, Dave. Please, if you could just press upon the audience to be careful out there.
I absolutely, look at the phone numbers that you're getting calls from. Look at the email addresses that things are coming from. It is so easy to mimic just about anybody that's on this panel or in the audience. It wouldn't take somebody more than 20, 30 minutes to come up with a good ruse to reach out for Ray and try to get some money, get something paid for. So be really, really careful. There's one little thing that makes you go, this is a bit odd. Look at the actual email address. It might say Ray Dickey, but in those little parentheses, look at the spelled out email address. Really important that you guys check these things.
And don't get in physical confrontations with people and in other people's space unless you're prepared to go all the way out. Adam, I don't want to get sidetracked here, but you had actually brought up a good example many, many years ago, a couple of years ago, I think, where you had mentioned a lot of associations have their meetings in libraries because their library is better equipped to control whether or not weapons can come in and out, right? Do you remember this?
Yeah. I still have that. A lot of our clients will set them up in libraries, particularly where, because some of the public libraries have security. A lot of them have metal detectors on the way in. And also, they are not allowed people get disruptive. The library can kick them out. So it's a lot easier for them to get them out of that, basically public location, which is the library that the library controls, as opposed to getting them out of a clubhouse where they don't have necessarily, police officers at the ready.
Yeah, I think the cops are going to go help the librarian, right?
Yeah, Ray.
Ray,
I've had similar experience with that too, that Adam is talking about, which is that this isn't always the case, but at least like in a lot of places in New Jersey that I've experienced, libraries tend to be closer to municipal buildings, police stations. There's more there's more street lights. There's more, there's less chance of parking lot confrontations. Like there's just more activity, more police. Also, using libraries or other public buildings gives you the excuse of, well, we'd like to keep this meeting going, but the library closes at 8:15, so we're sorry, everybody's got to go. As opposed to a clubhouse, which theoretically you keep open all night if you wanted to.
And I don't want to dive into the legal and insurance nitty gritty yet. We're going to do that after the quick break we're going to take. But Corey, do you think, I know I go overboard because it's part of my job to think of the worst case scenarios, but Corey, I feel kind of passionate about this because I get these board members that call me and it's very upsetting for me, right? And it's mostly the board members that upset, but can you back me up on how boards and managers should be careful? You must see it, right?
I say it all the time. And I think dealing with generally rational people at board meetings, most of the time they just want to be heard. And they don't really get super angry until the board president says, you're not allowed to speak. In Florida, by law, every association member has a right to a few minutes on an agenda item. but sometimes they go off track, or sometimes the boards don't know that law, and they say, well, you're not, this is a board meeting, you're not allowed to speak. And that enrages people, because they just want to be heard. And so sometimes if you ease up on the Robert's rules, and just give
Right.
them the opportunity to get off what's on their chest, it'll de-escalate often.
I agree with you, Corey, but Dave, Secret Service, Dave, some people are just nuts. There's going to be nothing you can do once they've determined that they're going to attack or be violent. You can't rationalize with them. The word here is crazy. Can you back me up on that?
Yeah. So, fortunately, that is not the norm. You're going to get people up there that need to blow off some steam pretty hard, but they'll walk away. But yeah, on occasion, you are going to have somebody that could be a few screws loose, for lack of a better definition. And you need to come back another day on those folks, because, some people are capable of doing some stuff you would never think. Somebody absolutely loses their mind. Luckily, I would like to say that's a very low percentage of people, not that it couldn't happen.
And just to wrap up, and then Kevin, if you want to reinforce it also in a second here, then I want to move on. And we're going to do the insurance and legal aspects of this, because there's a lot. I will read just a few of the comments from the audience, and I'll read them as I see them. I've had people with guns show up in my office. They haven't pointed it at me, but I know that they have the gun on them, and they want to let me know that they have them on me. I've been attacked by even a mentally unstable coworker. I never even saw it coming. We had one of our staff members get hit by a car. Another car incident. I have been stalked by residents. There's a lot of stuff here. Also, there's a couple people too that actually got involved and got hit with some scams. I can't even go through them all right now, Kevin. Just if you could, so we could get out of this segment, just reinforce. Am I wrong here?
No, you're right. I mean, the best advice I can give you is run. So when I was a younger attorney, we had more in-person meetings. I've actually been chased in the parking lot before, but thankfully I've made it to my car. But I would say actually technology is a good thing here. Having these meetings online, I think to some extent de-escalates those situations, and they're less common than maybe they were 5 or 10 years ago. So I think you're on the right track there, Ray.
All right. So Dave, we're going to have you stay. Dave Rossiter, just in case any more Q&A, because the guys are going to go into the legal aspects of it. So we'd like to have you there if you don't mind. Anything that we skipped, Dave? I think we kind of hit on the big points, right?
No, we're good.
Okay. And then, like I said, if you guys want more details, contact me. Let's take a break, because I'm actually all wound up now, because I feel like really upset for some of the board members and managers that have called me over the last 5 years. I can't stand people that bully other people and make them feel fearful. That being said, let me calm down a little bit, and let's go to Tom's 2-minute segment, Dr. Wisdom. I don't know if you know this, Dave. Secret Service, Tom has every designation possible. He does. There's not one he doesn't have. PhD, PCAM. I mean, it's preposterous how many he has. All right. With that being said, Tom, it's got to be interesting. It's got to be good. What are your 2 minutes of wisdom?
I think it coincides with what Dave was talking about, and I think, and Corey even mentioned it, people just want to be heard. So I think, how would you get managers to buy in and putting in cameras? I think the best approach for that is to put them in areas where they require the surveillance, but also put monitors up where people can see the actual unit owners, and they can see what's transpiring. They can see the video footage. And by doing that, they'll buy into the process and support the board in the endeavor in trying to spend those funds. I think it's really beneficial for them to see what they're getting for the value of their money.
It's funny. Yesterday I was talking to Tom, and he came up with this idea, and he wasn't going to go with it. I thought it was the greatest idea that I ever heard. Basically, what Tom was saying, just to make sure everyone understands, is you want to put a security system in your association, right? And the owners are going to cry, "Oh my gosh, it's so much money. I don't know if we really need it." Well, why not just put in a couple cameras and put up a couple monitors where they could see them in action, and just let it sit out there for 3 or 4 months? I'm going to tell you, we have monitors in our building that are visible to the owners. in certain sections. And it's the biggest selling point ever. If you put a couple cameras and a couple monitors out there for like 3 months and let the residents get used to it, they're going to be begging you to put cameras in other areas. Tom, pretty much what you were saying?
Exactly. I think they need to buy into it. They need to understand what they're getting and they see the value. And when people see that camera, they have a different demeanor. They act different and they're more conservative and they may not be so rambunctious. So it'll serve its purpose. And by doing so, the unit owners will buy into it and support the board.
Yeah, don't hit your owners with the 30 grand camera system right away. Go spend 2. Put a couple cameras up in the monitor and just you'll see they'll start asking for it, I think.
Right.
Okay, and insurance people, maybe you could touch upon cameras too also if you have time. Dave, Secret Service, do you mind me calling you Dave, Secret Service, because it's the easiest way for the audience. Perfect. And you're proud of your service, right? So you don't mind. You're
Absolutely not at all. It's good.
Thank you. Any feedback on cameras really quick? How do you feel about it?
They always say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So having those cameras in and around your properties, condominiums, apartments, whatever they happen to be. And I think Kevin made a great point of doing some of these meetings online. If you can, at an in-person board meeting, set up the little handy cam. These handy cams aren't as big as your fist, but have it recorded. Things like that, when somebody's up there losing their mind, but they can see that camera, ooh, I'm being recorded. I better not go too off the rails.
Lawyers, Dave just came up with a great topic idea. If we could talk about it today, if we can't, how about boards recording people at the meeting for that very purpose as a deterrent? And then also I'm going to ask you guys, can boards use that footage? Because if people knew that their footage was going to be shown at some point, they may act better. Dave, Dave, Secret Service, that's a great idea for maybe to keep people in their best behavior. Thank you so much for bringing it up. Okay, that being said, we are going to move on. By the way, Jennifer tried to get on. She was going to buy a gift card. She couldn't. The poll question was, who thinks they're right more often, men or women? Dawn Becker, Durham, what do you think the answer was?
I think it's women.
No, according to ChatGPT, most men think they're right, but they're not. That's what it said. You know what? If you're a man, you don't like it, argue with ChatGPT. Most men think they're always right, much more than women, but for the most part, they are not right. I don't know. That's what I found. That's what it says on ChatGPT, believe it or not.
ChatGPT's sexist, apparently.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay. That being said, let's get our thoughts from our panel on today's topic. A little different twist today. And who I see first is John.
I like and I've seen it work, the camera idea. Even if you can't have a physical pre-installed camera, you could do it if you know a meeting's going to be contentious. They work. New York's a one-party state, so only one party has to consent to the cameras. So that helps. There is somewhat of a side issue with the audio portion, and there are statutes against wiretapping. However, if there's 2 aspects that I've personally seen. It is a deterrent. People don't want to be, caught on tape. If you don't happen to have a camera in a meeting and the meeting gets out of hand, as Dave mentioned before, definitely try to de-escalate it. But thinking on your feet, I was at a meeting once where I was actually the target of a person who was sipping his coffee cup at the meeting and getting increasingly agitated at the board and me, because I happened to be sitting up there. The property manager that has a sign-in sheet in the back got a hand signal to call the police. While this was going on, they came in and they were able to calm this guy down. Turns out he was drinking straight vodka from his coffee cup and it was getting really out of hand. So there are creative ways to de-escalate, but the camera idea is a great one.
Yeah, did you sense there was a problem though, John? You felt that there was a problem. You didn't have a complete handle on it, but you felt like your safety was at risk here, right? To a certain extent.
Oh, correct. Yeah, this guy wanted to cause pain.
Yeah, and you saw a telltale. You mentioned the coffee cup. Do you feel that was a telltale sign? Something was just off the way he was drinking out of it or utilizing it?
I suspected it wasn't coffee because
Right.
he
But
got
you
and
sensed it.
he was getting worse as the
Yeah.
meeting progressed. Yeah.
Okay. That's another good telltale sign, right, Dave, from the Secret Service?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for board members, you probably have routine where there are quarterly, semi-annual, maybe even monthly meetings. And the 4 or 5 people that are usually the most vocal, get up there, will speak on any topic, whatever it is. So you'll know some of their baseline behaviors. But wait a minute, hey, Ray's a little off today, even though he's normally pretty agitated and pissed off about the grass. Man, something's different today.
All right.
Yeah.
Why do you keep using me? Why don't you use Corey? Why am I always the example, Dave? What are you trying to say here today? All right, let's watch our time, and let's go on to Adam. He's who I see next.
Well, so we're, with everything we're talking about with security and whatnot, I think it's important. And since I get to go early, I'm going to steal this ahead of the other guys who probably are thinking about it. Associations generally don't have a duty to provide security and provide for the safety of the membership in the common areas and the clubhouses, whatnot. But as soon as you take that duty on, you may be assuming the duty. And if you do like Ray says and just do some random cameras, then you may have done your duty improperly because you did not install enough cameras, because you didn't go to see a proper security consultant. Instead, you listened to Ray, and then you got yourself in trouble because you didn't diligently do your duty in even setting this up. So even the bare minimum you did wasn't right. And also in relation to that, in a lot of states, you want to make sure you amend your governing documents to expressly provide that the association does not provide security. That can be determinative in some courts in some states, and certainly even if your state isn't already one of those, it will be useful for you in the defense of an action. So there you go. And we have a theme going after Ray today, right?
I see you're getting the ball rolling here. Luckily, there's this big disclaimer that I don't know anything and that you guys are the experts. So, audience, I always joke around with the attorneys. I can literally say anything I want. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just the guy that asks a bunch of questions. The panel is the ones that have to be a little bit careful. But even today, just remember, they're not offering professional advice here today. They're offering commentary. See, Dave, Secret Service, see what I have to put up with? Adam never tells me I'm right 100%. Okay. All right. Deb, I know there's going to be a lot of insurance. Save a little room for Dawn if you can. Keep an eye on our time, but a lot of important stuff.
So the one thing I got from David's talk earlier was we don't talk much about employee theft and embezzlement. That we have had property managers who have stolen funds from associations, and you do have to file a police report and do a forensic analysis. That coverage can be purchased under a crime policy, and you want to make sure your limit is sufficient to cover the funds, because FHA has a guideline that says it has to be 3 months maintenance plus full reserves, and you have to update that every year because that embezzlement can happen over a long period of time, and they're going to look back to each one of those policies to see what your limit was, to see what coverage you have after that embezzlement has happened.
I'll ask Dawn, do you want to repeat? That's such an interesting thing, and I want to make sure people understand it because I barely understand it sometimes. When the embezzlement takes place is a big factor, you have to buy special insurance related to that. Do you want me to stick with Deb on that because you had another comment, or do you want to run with that, Dawn?
I was actually going to go in a different direction. So let's.
All right, let me go back to Deb. Deb, really quickly, can you know what I'm talking about, right? Can you make sense for the audience? They have to be careful about when the embezzlement takes place and the coverage and all this stuff.
Right. So say you find out about the embezzlement today. You have to make a police report. You have to report that to the insurance carrier. But what you're finding out through the forensic analysis is that the embezzlement has happened over the last 5 years. So let's just say that property manager has been taking about $50,000 each of the 5 years. So now you have a significant amount of money missing. You have to actually make sure that all of your policies over the last 5 years had the proper limits in place, because we're going to look back to that. So that's important. That's why every year as insurance agents, we ask you for your financial information, because we want to make sure that that limit is accurate for the year that we're in.
Right. So even though you canceled your insurance with the other insurance company 3 years ago, they could still be on the hook for it up to their limits because it took place during their time frame. Close?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is why I love Deb. See, Adam, it's a joy, an absolute joy. All right, Dawn.
So Deb brought up a great topic about the crime and fidelity. We also have cyber liability coverage, and we have a lot of crime protection built in for the computer fraud, the wire transfer fraud. It's extremely important for everybody to update their computer systems. Some of our cyber and our crime policies are actually putting in limitations, saying if you didn't install your software patch and that allowed malware or a virus to then infect others, you may not have coverage. So it's really important to do that. And then the last thing, this is where I wanted to go, which is a little different, workplace violence. We have insurance policies that will provide coverage for the publicity that occurs and having to talk to the public, hire a professional. Also, there's counseling that may be necessary. And the biggest thing is the lawsuits. A lot of policies will exclude assault and battery. So it's important to look elsewhere for that coverage. Workplace violence, the policies are getting a lot less expensive than they were years ago. However, you do need to have a plan, and some of the carriers want to know about that.
I love the commentary. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, Kevin, you're last, and Corey, you're second to last. So start scrambling if you need to. Dave Byrne.
I was going to say I would do two things. The first is that for deterrent purposes, we've found often that a an off-duty police officer in uniform just sitting in the back, even if he's on his phone the whole time, is a useful thing. It's just deterrence. It's just, one extra reason for a person to behave. The second thing I was going to say, and this is connected to what Corey said today, and Corey's made this point on previous broadcasts, if you could call these broadcasts, that board members need to be comfortable with the fact that people want to be heard. So like if you can't sit at a board meeting and listen to people be critical of you, I'm just trying to be completely honest. I say this to my clients themselves. If you can't sit in front of a room of 50 or 100 people and hear them criticize you, you may be in the wrong business. I mean, if you're going to step out and be an elected official, be an elected board member, you're a politician. And the same way, if you're a member of Congress or something, you need to be comfortable with the fact that, in fact, most people that show up are probably going to be critical of you. People that are happy will probably stay home. So you need to be more tolerant of people's opinions and of the fact that people are likely going to be adversarial and critical. And I agree with Corey. For the most part, if you let people speak, even if they say things you don't like, they probably will not get aggressive.
Why do people say thank you? Like, I never understood that. All the board meetings I watch, like if somebody insults me, why do you have to say thank you? Why can't you just say like, I heard you? I don't ever understand why board members do that. Like, thank you for your comments. Like, why do you have to go that far, Dave? Why can't you just be like, oh, I hear you? But anyway, whatever. Okay. Thank you so much. Corey.
This has nothing to do from a legal standpoint, but I think it's very important for people to take self-defense classes and awareness training. When a situation does arise, you don't have time to think. You're going to resort to the training that you have. I send my wife and daughter to jujitsu training. They both, know how to handle firearms and defend themselves if necessary. And, we live in Florida, so everyone has guns. You have to assume everyone has guns. And it's one of those things, to be able to assess a threat and react based on your training is critical in those situations.
I take Tom England with me. That's my bodyguard. All right, Kevin, you're last.
All right, I'm going to give you a legal tip and then a quick story that's going to tie it all together here. So getting an audit or review by an independent CPA, highly recommend it. In Michigan, you can actually vote to opt out of this, and some associations are cheap and do that, but that's a great way to stop financial crimes. And the story I'm going to tell, it was about a guy. He was a board president. He probably drank some of the vodka, from John's meeting, because he went around telling everybody he was really in the CIA and he could be trusted. And what he ended up doing was taking about $500 to $1,000 a pop out of the ATM every day, unbeknownst to the board. But the way he distracted us was with the cameras, because he used to take some of the spy tech that David had. He had a little pen camera and was trying to say the property management company was doing all these horrible things. So he would send us hours of video every day that we would, spend our time looking at, to look over here instead of over there. So he was eventually caught. The CPA ended up finding all these irregularities. He did go to jail. Fortunately for the association, it was covered by their crime policy and reimbursed because he didn't have any money to refund it. But, that's kind of my story that brings your cameras and your financial crimes all together at the end and sums it up. So get your audits and reviews.
So he was pretty clever.
I don't know if he was that clever, but the problem is the other board members trusted him and they were kind of asleep at the wheel and just allowed this to go on, as opposed to actually, had they looked at the financial statements, had the management company maybe been a little bit more on the ball, we wouldn't have had to wait until it got to the accountant before this ended up with the police.
Dave, from the Secret Service, retired. I'm surprised today that we spent so much time talking about physical safety. I really thought like Kevin touched upon embezzlement, but I think even the rest of the panel, for the most part, Deb spoke a little about embezzlement, I think. And the audience by far is talking about physical safety instead of financial. Are you surprised by that?
No, not really. You lose a few hundred. Nobody wants to lose money, but getting your nose broken or losing a tooth, that's no good. And I heard a few things from the rest of the panelists that we talked about. Recording the board meetings, a very overt camera. Hey, everybody, we're recording this board meeting for those who can't be here and we'll post it. Okay, we got a camera. Okay, I'm not going to do something stupid on camera. Talked about having a police officer on site, even if he's in the back of the parking lot on his phone. Our company also provides security services, and we do this at many condominiums, shopping centers, that sorts of thing, when it may be just a midnight shift where they're driving around and you see some of those cameras out in the parking lot of the condominiums and those sorts of places. That visual security can be a very, very large deterrent.
Yeah, we didn't even give Sun States a break here after they were kind enough to have your time, which is valuable. And Roberto was nice enough to set it up. The fact that hire security guards, we actually use them at our expos, and they have been a huge help. They do know what they're doing. That's what they do. They watch whatever you want them to watch, and they're good at it. And I highly recommend hiring security when you need it. And there's also insurance aspects that we don't have time to get involved in. Do you agree, Dawn and Deb, with hiring security compared to being... Okay.
But I do want to say this is great for the attorneys. Contracts are important. If you're going to hire a security firm, you want to have favorable contract language.
We'll do it. Don't worry. We'll get to that part. All right, Tom, any last words of wisdom?
Just amazing commentary from a banker's side. I've seen a lot of embezzlement, theft, but I would recommend, with the technology that management companies have, use positive pay and auto reconciliation. That'll save them the headaches as well.
Well, I'm not going to end the program, but for those that need to leave, because there's some stuff I need to get done with Adam, and I'm going to invite the audience to watch our give and take here. It's going to take about 15 minutes if they want to. There was a topic that I want to get some video from Adam on before we do, and it's actually going to be about managers and board members getting arrested. Adam had brought it up, and I'm going to follow. So you're welcome to jump off. You're welcome to stay if you're here in the panel. Dave, I appreciate you being here so much from Sun States. Very much appreciated. And
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You owe me an email on something that I'm asking you to do.
Yes, I do. I'll get it to you.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. Rest of the panel, thank you so much. If you want to chirp in on what Adam and I are going to talk about, you can. If you're here for just CEUs and you want to split, you can do that also. We're just going to talk about very, very short about managers and boards. I was going to have Adam come back on later, but I thought he was already here. So I'll just keep it recording and take it from there. But I want to thank the audience for being here on that subject, and please be careful. And I hope I didn't scare you. I feel bad about that all the time. All right. That being said, Adam, you had brought up thanks everybody. Adam, you had brought up an interesting topic a previous live stream that I was surprised about. And let me ask it as a question so I can edit it properly. Adam, have you ever found any situations where either board members or managers have been arrested for not so obvious issues? And if so, what were those circumstances?
I've seen him arrested for obvious issues and for not so obvious issues. The one that was the, I guess, catalyst for the questions that you want to talk about today was we had a board member who was arrested for knocking on a homeowner's door.
Give me the circumstances.
So first I'll premise this with, what I always say, no good deed goes unpunished. And there's a reason that the industry has a lot of processes in place. There's a reason that homeowners that board members, you shouldn't be, and managers, you shouldn't be going knocking on people's doors to give them a courtesy knock and say, hey, you're overwatering, or you need to work on your grass or something else. There's a reason you don't do the call. It's because of a lot of variety of issues. In this particular issue, this board member was, he was a really nice guy. The community had a habit of frequently, he would just reach out to people and touch base with them. If there was an issue, he'd knock on their door and say, hey, I'm Bob, the president, not his real name. And there's this issue, and we want to, just want to bring your attention, see if you guys could, so you guys take care of it. And by the way, nice to meet you, neighbor, that kind of thing. So super nice guy. Went with that approach. The problem is that works until it doesn't work. And we just had the program that we're going over where we're talking about a lot of different people that you can run into and people that have various issues. And the problem that Bob ran into is that he ran into an individual that had a problem with him coming up to their door and a problem with him being there. And, Bob's not wearing a body camera. He doesn't have anything. He doesn't have a witness with him. He's going solo and stopping by somebody's door. So they allege that he assaulted them, that he threatened physical violence against them when he got there to the door. And, they called it in, and the police picked him up. And he spent the night in jail. And then he had to get, he's dealing with a criminal prosecution for assault. And the problem for Bob is there's only one person that should have been there in the doorway, and that's the homeowner. Bob wasn't invited on the property. He had to enter the property. He's having to cross the lawn. He's going the sidewalk. He's going to the door, which of course, we see people doing solicitation all the time. They're not supposed to do that. But in this particular situation, they called it in, and they picked him up for it, and it was a tough situation for him, emotionally, personally, and also it was the end of Bob doing courtesy door knocks around the community to talk to people about their violations.
I think too, what I'm hearing, Adam, is hopefully it works out fine for Bob. He doesn't sound like an arch criminal, and he'll go through the criminal justice system. But it's already been a loser for Bob already, just based on the emotional aspect of it and the embarrassment. You've already lost at that point, even though you're going to get your day in court. And I hope Bob most likely wins. And if he's never been in trouble, I'm sure he probably will. But he's already lost.
Yeah, he came out on top in that situation in the sense that he was exonerated. This is years ago. This is before the proliferation of door cameras. So this was just he said, she said, or he said, I don't remember who the person was on the side situation. But he was ultimately it was dismissed and whatnot. But the problem is when you're arrested, that goes on your record. You spend the night in jail. That's not fun. You got to pay money for an attorney. That's an issue. And then another thing to consider, in this particular situation, because the board had been very supportive of him in doing these situations, the association did pick up the tab for attorney's fees. But in most situations, particularly today, that's going to be your rogue board member. That's going to be somebody that the board's already told them not to be doing that. They've already said, hey, you're not authorized to go knocking door to door. We have a process for this. Management sends a letter. There's a reason for that. One of them is that we don't want people showing up on people's doorsteps. And so management sends a letter, it's a courtesy notice, a hearing notice, whatever, and the folks respond. So now when you've got a board member doing that, they're a rogue board member, and the association's not going to have an obligation to step in necessarily. Indemnification defense provisions not necessarily going to apply. Insurance probably not going to cover him because he's going outside of the scope of what he's supposed to be doing, particularly if the association's already notified him that he should stop doing that. And that's something where, with our clients, we always put these folks on notice, say, hey, you're not authorized to do this. We're directing you to stop. We're directing you, the association, consider this willful misconduct in the event you do it in the future, and that we're going to press to not be forced to provide you with coverage, either through the indemnification defense provisions of the documents or the association's policy, because you should not be going door to door knocking on people's doors.
We're going to do it as a topic. I'm glad you gave me the preliminary information that I need. And when we say that Bob came on top, yeah, maybe legally, but maybe not emotionally. Who knows what damage had been done to him with his reputation and even his own emotion, self-awareness after being basically arrested.
He ultimately quit serving on the board, and he'd served for years and was well liked in the community, but he quit. I mean, that was just enough. He'd had enough.
Yeah.
Like I said, no good deed goes unpunished. And it's one of those things, it works and people love it until the one person, and then it's a nightmare situation. And it's just not worth it, even for the one time.
Just a quick question, Adam. Since the audience that stayed, they have a couple questions. If you got to split, though, by all means, let me know. I don't mind doing this because it's not our regular live stream period. I'd like more information on Adam Clarkson's firm, where are they located, and contact information. I will connect you with Adam, but really quick, Adam, why don't you answer that for them?
Sure. I'm Adam Clarkson of Clarkson, McAlonis, and O'Connor. We are located specifically, we're on Johnny Dodds Boulevard in Mount Pleasant, but we're in Charleston, South Carolina. We service all of South Carolina, including the upstate where I'm from. I'm from Spartanburg originally. But we cover all of South Carolina. We also have another office in Nevada and Las Vegas, Nevada.
We're actually happy to have Adam. For the people that are still here, I don't actually get to say that during the live stream because I'm so pressed for time, but he's also a CAVL, which is actually a very big deal in the industry. You can look that up, and he has an excellent reputation. All our attorneys are actually the best attorneys. I don't think I'd have them on if they were not. Adam knows that. You cannot. Our attorneys do pay and support the chapters financially, but that is not the driving reason that they are here. If they are not good at their job, we're not going. You can't buy time, right, Adam? Especially with the CI chapters, and
that's right.
You can't buy time for what I do also on my own. I'm not gonna. It just doesn't happen. Somebody was also asking if you want to touch upon it, and I didn't have time to clarify it. It's written down everywhere. I'm not worried about it. To tell people to check with their attorneys about putting the camcorder up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But you mentioned that you were concerned about it to a certain extent, like setting up a camcorder and sticking it right in somebody's face. And I didn't want to get sidetracked on it, Adam, but I think that would probably be a good topic too, because I do think it would be an effective tool to keep people under control.
I mean, you're running into all kinds of issues once you get into it. I touched on when you're talking about setting up cameras in general. If you're setting up cameras around the community, you should be working with a security consultant with the selection of those cameras and installation. You should not be picking that at random, because if you do find yourself in liability in a litigation situation over failure to provide adequate security, and they say you did a little bit of it, and they find out that you just willy-nilly put a few up and didn't put them up, you could be facing some pretty significant extra liability that was otherwise avoidable because you try to do something helpful. I mean, you can't do what you would do at your own home. You can't at your own house. You can put cameras up as you want because you're responsible for your own security. But if you're taking that on, you don't want to do that. Now, if you're getting into the recording the meetings, you've got several layers. You want to point out, again, you're not providing security. You've got issues of whether or not, because some various governing documents may or may not make that association record people can obtain. You certainly don't want to put that on. If you're going to post it, because it was Royce about posting it earlier, if you're going to do that, it should be on a closed program where it's not something that's just posted on the internet, because your meetings are private meetings of a private corporation. corporation. They're not public meetings. So you shouldn't be posting your private corporation issues onto the internet, because if you do that, let's say you do that and someone that was going to buy a home in your community watches the video from your community HOA meeting and sees a bunch of crazy people, they don't purchase, and now you've got homeowners losing sales because of this issue, and maybe even driving prices down in the community. And now you've got a problem because you've published otherwise confidential information in violation of the association's rights, and that's resulting in a loss to the membership. So you want to be careful with those as well. I mean, there's just so many things that you can do. It can be useful, but the other problem is if you open up that door, are you opening up the door for the membership to record you as a board? So in addition to you having a camera up front, you may be opening a door to members basically holding their phones in front of your face the entire meeting. There was a state, and as I mentioned, we have an office in Nevada. Nevada they just tried to pass a law this year that we're going to allow members to video record board meetings, which means equates to shoving a camera in board members' faces. That law didn't pass, thankfully, but that's something that a lot of other states can be worried about coming around. I mean, once these laws start passing in various states, they move from state to state, and we see that all the time, unfortunately.
I think nowadays you just have to assume that anything you do in the public realm could be videotaped in some manner and end up on the internet. You just literally got to be in your best behavior all the time, but maybe you should be. A couple people are saying they already use your office and they're already happy with it. We use Adam's office a lot in upstate South Carolina. I don't know if they use you or if they're talking about using Sean. I'm going to let you go, Adam, but I was just kind of a little bit sad about all the people that have been harassed here. I feel like I'm a Debbie Downer on these things, right? Like I don't ever really get to tell the audience, and I don't mind sharing it for the people that are still watching. And there's about 50 people that are still here. I mean, I don't like being a Debbie Downer. I'm not in my real life, but unfortunately I'm in the business of coming up with these scenarios. But it's pretty sad, the commentary I'm seeing here. I mean, it's just, there's a lot here of people saying their nephew's going to come and beat them up. This is just completely unacceptable. It just is.
It is. It is. There's another, speaking of, I've been pressing, because I've been on the LAC for Nevada as well, which is a lot more regulated. And we're pressing, and we're going to try to press it again, but we have a bill that is going to be protections for board members and for managers, basically very similar to the bills that you guys see with respect to protection for teachers, where people come in and the teachers are basically, they're forced to deal with parents and whatnot, and those parents should not be threatening them. It's going to be more of a civil. It's not going to be so much criminal as the teachers type one, but we're trying to get that bill pushed through in Nevada. We're going to be looking at if we have that similar opportunity in South Carolina. Well, it'll be something we bring up, but certainly if we get it passed in Nevada, which has some traction, then that'll be something that CAI is probably going to take around and try to get passed in a number of states. But because civility is a concern, we're seeing all these civility studies that CAI is pressing out, and civility in the community association industry. I mean, it's definitely gone down in the last 20 years that I've been in it. I largely blame the internet and just the ease with which people can send things, because people sending something drunk at 2 a.m. Because they can get on their computer and be a keyboard warrior. People don't do that when they have to type up a letter, put it in an envelope, post it, and put it in the mailbox. They came to their senses by the time they finally got around to it. So it's just an unfortunate thing with increased ability to communicate. There's a lot more negativity that's communicated as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to let you go, Adam, too, but I wish there was something, maybe there isn't a lot too, about getting in people's personal space. Like I feel when you get too close to somebody, that in itself is a threat. You know what I mean? And I just don't like it when I see it with the older board members and there's a younger individual towering over them, in an aggressive manner. You don't have to get close to anybody to communicate. If anything, I feel like if you're feeling angry at someone, you should take a few steps back. You know what I mean? Just so they feel safe. It really bugs me. It's just me. I really can't stand these bullies. And unfortunately, I have to see them all the time, and they're always targeting these older people. And when it's somebody, it's mostly men, when it's somebody their own size and who has the same level of confidence, they don't seem to be so close to them for some reason. Just that probably makes you angry too, I'm sure. So probably just a thing. All right. Well, thanks everybody that stuck around, and send me any additional commentary if you want. Bye everybody. Thank you.
Bye guys. Thank you.